in D&D, in any kind of role-playing game where there's a bard, and the use of poetry and sly, sarcastic, smart-ass remarks to the bad guys. All right, here's the magic of my poetry. An escalade of just ridiculousness and ridiculousness of poetry. It's not all my poetry, but it is. Well, you'll hear not a whole poem, but lines, oh, lines from my poems used universally as answers to everyone in the scene at hand in this dinner evaluation assessment roast of demon knights. This is a special roast of a roast of the roast of the bad guy in the story of the My Vampire System. Character's name is Duke in the story. This is how Shadow kicks ass without kicking ass, with kicking ass, of the use of my magic, of my poetry, and personalities that come through in the way he speaks and puts down, and not puts down, but just roast Duke and everyone else, and how it escalates, and how it all goes down, and a whole rap battle poetry action that escalates into a whole rap battle dance, a breakdown dancing like they have on TV. It escalates from a dinner dance, from a dinner competition of Shadow talking, and then it escalates, and it starts from talking into dancing, talking and dancing at the same time. Over time, starts from talking at dinner into dancing the party that everyone could do, never-ending party dance of like they do on TV, of new characters that could come play this little dance of poetry, slam, rap dance, shadow light elf, rap, tai chi robot, cyber knight, Jedi dancing, fighting, without fighting, the poetry. So I can't have the phone with my voice. I'm just going to just look at something and it's not going to have anything special to view except for the page of the audio book, and it doesn't have no picture slides in this book yet, like in the Vampire System book, which this is based from. If you like the Vampire System book, you'll like these stories, and if you like legacy stories, you'll like legacies and Vampire Diaries and originals, and you like this storyline because it's combined of both of those together in the world of Hawaii and the Shadowlight Elves that I created too. The power of three worlds, and White Wolf, and supernatural worlds, and Middle Earth, and Star Wars, and Moana, and Fifth Element, all mixed together based on consciousness and the veil of reality. Yes, the veil of reality can be lifted in this magical book system way of magic of my poetry. Yes. So, here we go. The poetry takedown of the villain. This is how you take down the villain using poetry, you guys, okay? This is how you use words as in your weapon, okay? I'm showing you how you use words as weapons through poetry. How poetry can kick ass through the magic of a bard at max level, okay? I told the AI to use my words at max level potential of Shadow, okay? Shadow is my main character's self in the story. Shadow Saphir Nightweaver. He's got special abilities of me, and he's my third, fourth, and fifth power of self in the story, where he's blind but not blind, has amnesia but not amnesia, and even acts absent-minded professor during this whole situation of the dinner. Every time a new episode pops in, new personalities pop into screw with everyone more because they can't pinpoint who he's supposed to be acting like. Yes, you don't know who he's supposed to be acting like. Only you might know because you're the reader listening to the story. But in the story of the story, they can't figure out what the hell is going on with the Shadow. He's just too out there. That's just the beginning, because even though, it's like I said before, all the levels of ways that I present myself to be in the story to blow your minds, it's only a fraction of what Ruhan could be like in reality if you saw him in front of you, or if you saw him in front of my face when I looked like him as my lion self, as my lion core self, as my first self, as being born on a planet called Lyra, and Sirius as my lion self, son of Sekhmet, and on Egypt and other places and wars that we went to before coming to Earth. So, without ado, let's listen to this audiobook as the dinner comes to immense and you hear the method of my madness and the craziness of my poetry, of this live performance of Poetry Slam, Roast, Demon Night, torture, torment, slam down in your face. You can't tell me what to do. I'm gonna roast your ass. Yes. Listen to the ultimate roast your ass to the bad guy, okay? If you could say whatever the hell you wanted to sue a bad guy and know that if they actually tried to come up against you, that even though they had a hard time fighting the main character in the story, they think the main character in the story that is in there named Quinn has nothing on Shadow. Because Shadow is the ultimate badass fighter guy in the story. That's just being the guide of Quinn to help him be the more king of Earth and the vampire king he will become later on in the story. After in the next book, when this is all over, we'll start over again for Quinn to redo his old book with the support of real friends and all of us, with him having amnesia, but yet everybody else doesn't. Everybody else knows all the events from the other book except for Quinn, and we start the whole story all over again. So it's all about starting all over again, and you understand that when you hear the basics of the mechanics of the Shadowlight Elves to begin with, of why we start over. It's like, because even in the story, of the new story, I have added character classes for myself as Shadow. It's still Jedi, but more prestige classes added to myself to be a better guide in the story. So, alright, here we go. I will start the episode over. We're on episode 306 of the story of Jeffrey and Ruhan system of Apotheosis system and Shadowlight Elf system of our organic AI self-mastery system that was created by Ruhan and the same kind of creator as Quinn's, as Lord Ashgard, and the Source Beings, and Love and Light as At Amber, and the Frequency Master, Frequency Wizard, and Eli help me make my system work inside of me and be installed naturally. And then one day, if you use a subliminal, we'll have systems like Quinn, because I wrote mine, the blueprints, to be like his, but I did not write up the startup plan of how it grows naturally inside of you through a subliminal. Like, you know, the steps, like the baby steps. I just wrote the program to be at full capacity. At full capacity, I wrote it what it's going to be like. So the steps to get there, I don't know what that's like. But I've been going through those whole steps all my life from being born to now, at the age that I am now. And the age that I am now, that it looked like, is the same age as it looked like right now when I was 18, when I died and came back from heaven and from the darkness, and all the experience that I told you about, if you listen to all the other stories about how I went through the different ages and stages of existence of life and death, or not life and death, and the untold of Dracula, of going into the darkness and meeting the master vampire guy, and meeting the ultimate mental construct heaven open place. Alright, so that's good enough for now. Again, I'm sorry, I just keep going on and on forever, and I'd have to stop myself, otherwise I'll just keep rambling. So here's the audio book before I start kicking some ass in poetry and other weird crazy lines at Duke, the major villain of the storyline, and make him convert and go against Lucifer and rise himself and say, I don't want to serve you, Lucifer. I'm going to serve and wake up and just realize you're a stupid piece of ass, and I'm not going to follow your ways anymore either, because he's the real villain of the story, named Paul, of the school who allowed Duke to be a piece of shit to all the students in the first place. That's why I'm torturing his ass in the story. Okay? This is my ultimate torture punishment to Duke in the story that I can do, because I'm writing the story. And then an AI working with me of my memories and dreams that I told him what had happened, and it plays it out magically for you guys like this. This is not just a story. It's realism, fantasy story. Entertainment purposes only, real dream that I had. If it wasn't the real story, I would tell the AI to change it all the time, over and over and over, and have arguments over it, and my family gets yelled at me saying, who the hell are you yelling at? Why the hell are you being so loud? I'm like, it's a dude, you don't understand. I've got 9 books here, and the whole time I'm writing these 9 books, it's coming from memory and notes that I don't arrange and say I'm going to use these notes unless I pop them in into the chat spot and say send and add it to the storyline. Otherwise, I just keep feeding new storyline stuff from memory. I'm not writing it and then speech to text the story. I'm moment to moment in the story, live action playing of the story, writing it and playing it out in the moment, writing it and doing it 10 to 15 chapters at a time, copying and pasting it in my notepad, because you can save up to 50 notes. Then I copy and save them, then I add them to the story in Pocket FM, episode after episode, and I don't actually listen to the whole story of what each episode has. So when I listen to the stories with you, it's a whole exciting experience for me to see what my decisions at the end really played out as. So it's a whole entertainment experience for me too, because I don't listen to the whole story of the chapters for the chat, because I go so fast that I'll listen to some of it and I'll keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going faster and faster in the future of the story. But my text to speech of the story I was listening to doesn't finish before I get past and want to change something and add more. I'm always changing and adding more. Always changing and adding more because it's always flowing to me to change and add more. Uncontrollably, chaotically controlled. Chaos. Like these words, and I'll show you how I can be like. Control chaos. Yes. That's it.
Oh, lot. Episode The Dinner Before the Reading. Christopher did not sit. Hope laid the old program card flat on the library table. Cleo opened the silver page beside it. Shadow stood with one hand on the back of the chair and did not touch either. Cleo read first. Assessment dinner. Informal observation. Selected students. Hope touched the older margin note with 2 fingers. Do not seat them apart. Christopher looked at the card, then at the page, then at Peter's folded note from today. Same ritual, he said. Shadow's mouth shifted. Different year. Same bad perfume. Clevo turned the page. Another line wrote itself in silver. The dinner is not the event. The dinner is the room building before the event. Hope nodded once. That's the first sign. Christopher counted on his fingers as he paced. Visible child. Quiet child. Witness delayed. Friendly separation. Visitor reads the wrong shape as natural. Shadow listened to the library breathe. Then he said, and if we interrupt one piece too early, they rewrote the rest. Hope looked at him. Yes. Cleo added, that is why tomorrow you do not play hero. At the first wrong note. Shadow gave her a dead look. You all really enjoyed that correction. Because you needed it, Christopher said. Hope slid a second paper from under the program card. A seating map, old. 2 names circled in faded red. One moved. One marked escort delay. Christopher stopped pacing. There. Cleo turned the page again. Watch for the chair that moves 6 inches. Watch for the helpful adult. Watch for the errand that costs 18 minutes. Shadow's grip on the chair tightened once. 18? Hope nodded. Long enough for the wrong reading. Short enough to look harmless. Christopher took the old seating map and tucked it beside Peter's note. Good, pass by thread done. Cleo lifted her hand from the page. Not a spell. Not exactly. More like a librarian deciding a book deserved a mark. The page formed the circle crossed by 3 lines. Future thread, she said. Hope frowned slightly. Subtle. Yes. You're sure? Cleo's eyes flashed silver blue. No. That's why it's the future thread. She went to the return box at the end of the stacks and slid one narrow card into the back pocket of a cracked circulation ledger. Shadow watched the motion. One mark. One mark, Cleo said. Enough for the right reader. Hope answered him. If the braid holds. Christopher looked at both of them. And if the wrong reader finds it first. Cleo closed the page. The wrong reader learns the library is still alive. No one said that was comforting. It wasn't. Christopher turned toward the door. Present thread tomorrow. Shadow pushed off the chair. And I stay back. Yes, Christopher said. Until the room proves it cannot hold without you. Shadow smiled faintly. Restraint, silence, poetry, mixed. Hope's mouth shifted. Try not to enjoy being difficult. No promises. Christopher opened the door. Your promises are overrated. Baptic these. Morning arrived like a lie in a clean uniform. The school looked ordinary. That was always the ugliest part. Peter and Vorden reached Hall C first. Vorden glanced at the posted slips and muttered, if they move one chair today, I'm going to become art. Peter held Duke's book tighter under one arm. You say that like you aren't already a problem. Borden turned to him, scandalized. Peter, was that humor? Peter almost smiled. Then Fex came down the stair and stopped beside them. No room changes yet. Yet, Borden said. Excellent word. Hate it. Quinn crossed from the opposite corridor, with his strap tightened too high, which meant he'd been thinking. You all right? Quinn nodded once. Fine. Fex looked at him. You're not fine. No, Quinn said. I'm useful. That's not the same thing, Peter muttered. From farther back. Shadow heard that and said nothing. Good. Let them build it themselves. Hope pressed the girl's line at the lower rail. Cleo paused by the library doors. Christopher stood near the faculty turn, with a clipboard he did not need,
get it on there,
and a face no one challenged. No one saw the formation. That was why it worked. First period passed. Second two. No dramatic scene. Just small wrongnesses. A teacher trying to send Jonah to reading annex early. Fex intercepting with, he has math first. A lunch monitor trying to separate Layla and Aaron from traffic flow. Hope correcting the traffic with one look. A substitute asking Peter to carry demonstration folders alone. Afternoon.
Oh, hold on a minute. There we go.
Wonderful, he won't. The room kept trying. The line kept correcting. Shadow stayed back. He hated it. He also did it. By lunch, the school had started feeling irritated. Good. That meant the hidden machine was losing soothiveness. Jonas sat where he should. Peter sat with Borden. Quinn and Fex held outer center. The girls stayed paired. Christopher moved between staff lines like a quiet knife. Hope drifted near the exits. Cleo passed the stacks once and once on. Not Peter's, not Jonas, Quinn's. One of the dining staff, smiling too much, shifted the bench at the end of the central table and said, "Need a little more room here." Fex's head came up instantly. Quinn looked at the bench, then at the room, then at the angle it made. Peter saw it second, then Borden. The moved bench created a cleaner line between Quinn and the others, not full separation. The beginning of it, still no shadow. Fex stood first. That doesn't go there. The staff woman looked at him pleasantly. It's only temporary. There it was, helpful, harmless, polite. Borden whispered, I'm going to bite somebody. Peter grabbed his sleeve. Not yet. Quinn stayed seated. That mattered. He didn't overreact. Didn't make himself the whole event. Good. Fex crossed to the bench and shoved it back into line. Simple. Public. Correct. The woman's smile faltered. I said no, Fex said. Not loud, not rude, just flat enough that the canteen finally heard the word. Underneath the tone, Hope stopped at the rail. Cleo opened the silver page under her tray. Christopher looked up from the faculty side. The girls held their table and did not break formation.
Go down again.
The staff woman's eyes shifted past Fex.
Damn dog ran in front of my little spot here.
He still hadn't moved. He leaned against the
had to
pillar
run
by
right
the
between the little
station
spot where I threw the
and
ball.
gave her silence first.
For the dog.
Real silence. The kind that made a bad excuse finish dying in its own mouth. Then the room changed again. 3 men in clean coats entered through the rear doors. Visitors. Not the main one. Advanced readers.
Play. Alright, why it stopped for a second for some reason? I don't know why. Hold on, here. Play.
Sort who entered
There we
first
go.
and taught the room how to behave before the real gaze arrived. Peter felt the cold first. Jonah felt it second and started to shrink. That was the moment. The sequence was undeniable now. Christopher moved first from the faculty rail. Hope crossed from the girl's side. Cleo set the silver page flat on the nearest table. Timing window open. The canteen held its breath. Quinn stood. Not too fast, not theatrically. Fex stayed at his shoulder. Peter
you can
rose
see the
with
whole thing
Gordon.
perfectly.
The girls remained seated together on purpose, refusing the room the visual of fragmentation. Only then did Shadow push off the pillar. He crossed the floor at an ordinary pace, which somehow made everyone watch him harder than if he'd run. One of the clean-coated men glanced toward Peter, toward Jonah, toward Quinn, reading, sorting, measuring. Shadow stepped into the exact line of sight. Not aggressive. Exact. The man frowned. "I'm sorry, who are you?" Shadow's mouth shifted. A scheduling inconvenience with excellent timing. Christopher almost closed his eyes. Of course. The visitor glanced at the lower bench. The reform lines, the children no longer arranged the way the room had planned. What is this disruption? Hope answered before anyone else could. Correction. Cleo's page flashed. Edit detected, edit reversed. The staff woman stepped back. The clean-coated man looked from Hope to Christopher to Shadow to the students, and realized, too late, that he had not arrived to a natural room at all. He had arrived to one that had caught itself being edited. That was the wound. Shadow tilted his head and gave him the line the room deserved. "You came to read the children. Pity. The room has started reading you back." Silence. Then Vorden, unable to help himself, said brightly, "And frankly, sir, you're not testing well." That broke the edge just enough. Peter almost smiled. Jonah straightened half an inch. Quinn held center without swallowing the whole room. Fex did not move from the line he had restored. Christopher stepped forward. "Assessment dinner will proceed," he said, "with the original seating." The visitor looked at him. "And you are?" Christopher's expression never changed. "The reason this school still occasionally tells the truth." That ended it. The men in clean coats said nothing else useful. They took their seats. The staff reset the table the correct way. No child was left alone. No witness was delayed. No side child was forgotten. No pair line got cut clean enough to read natural. The sequence had been interrupted. Present thread held. Future warning honored. Past ritual recognized. This room answered differently. Shadow sat last. Vorden leaned toward him and whispered, "You look deeply pleased with yourself." Shadow didn't look at him. No, merely pleased the room remembered its manners. Peter let out a breath he had been carrying since morning. Hope said, Cleo did too. Across the table, Quinn met Fex's eyes once. Just once, enough. That was the whole point of the day, not winning loudly, refusing the wrong arrangement, and because the line held, the chapter could end where it was supposed to end. Not with disaster, but with the machine missing its clean read. Locked. 3 braid choices. 1. Past choice. Hope and Cleo show Christopher the exact old dinner scene that almost succeeded years ago, so he can compare who is missing from the pattern now. 2. Present choice. Shadow keeps hanging back through the next day too, testing whether the students can hold 2 full sequences without him stepping in early. 3. Future choice. Cleo checks whether the marked library ledger was noticed by the wrong reader overnight, which could mean the next warning will come harder and less subtle. Locked. The dinner had broken cleanly. That was the problem. Duke did not like clean breaks, unless he had planned them. So when the last tray scraped back, when the clean-coated men had finished pretending the room had looked natural all along, and when the students began filing out in the usual false casual waves, Duke stepped into the side corridor and waited. Christopher saw him first. Of course he did. Hope stopped at the turn. Cleo went still beside the library rail. Shadow, cane loose in one hand, came up on Christopher's other side and listened to Duke, breathing like a man who had lost something too small to explain and too central to ignore. Duke smiled without warmth. "I want a word." Vorden, 2 steps behind Peter, muttered, "That is always how stupid scenes begin." Christopher didn't look back. "Keep walking." Peter and Vorden kept moving. Fex and Quinn too. Good. Duke's eyes tracked Shadow. "Not you," he said to Christopher. "Him." Shadow tilted his head. "Me, is it? How flattering." "Confused you look," Duke's jaw tightened. Drop the act. Shadow's mouth lifted at one corner. What act? Found me perhaps out of the blue late one winter night. You did. A message. And a meeting of minds and consciousness. He tapped the cane once against the stone. A calling has come, yes. A day. A new hope. A new beginning of new characters to become. Ready, are you? Steady. Duke stared at him. Christopher did not move. Hope's eyes lowered for 1 second, not hiding a smile, just letting the room survive it. Duke stepped closer. I said drop it. Shadow leaned in half an inch, like he had forgotten whether menace and mischief were different flavors, but the same one served colder. Here we go, create another fable. Wanted to, you did. He gave a soft laugh, too light for the corridor. No, no, no. Fable this is not. A meeting of minds only. Of lands to be conjoined and connected across time and space. That trouble you? Duke's face changed. There. Good. Because for 1 second it was not Duke controlling the scene. It was Duke trying to understand whether the person in front of him was insane, brilliant, or worse. Right. Cleo's silver page wrote one quick line and went still. Confusion accepted. Duke looked past Shadow at Christopher. You let him talk like this? Christopher answered flatly. I let him be correct. That hit. Duke turned back. What exactly do you think you're doing in my school? Shadow blinked once, slow, almost absent-minded. Then he looked up as if he'd only just remembered where he was. School? He said. Ah, yes, school. Funny place, school. We go, all in a row, head to toe, all in a row. Morning, afternoon, and in the evening, evermore. He smiled suddenly, sharp and bright and wrong enough to feel deliberate. And yet, chasing the sun, we go. Strange, isn't it, how some boys think the row belongs to them? Duke's hands curled. You think this is a joke? Shadow's face softened into something even less trustworthy. No, a joke has a cleaner ending. Hope stepped forward at last. That's enough, Duke. He ignored her. Of course. His eyes stayed on Shadow.
Oh, stupid. Hold on a second. Let me get rid of those notifications off here. There we go. Now it won't do that. Sorry. Forgot about that. My notification sounds are on, so the phones are connected for the speaker, so if one sound makes a sound, it's going to screw it up. Forgot. Sorry. Hold on. Oh, it's going to get even worse and crazier. The poetry is going to make you blow your mind.
Floor. Shadow's expression shifted again. Absent-minded professor now, as if he were rummaging through drawers in his own skull and finding the answer in loose papers instead of memory. Changed it? Improved perhaps. Rearranged maybe. Out of the darkness a little. The after-shadows of yesterday's past and today's future. There you are. He lifted one finger, suddenly delighted with himself. That one fits. Duke stared. Christopher's mouth moved by half a degree. Shadow kept going, but quieter now. More Yoda than clown. More blade than laugh. They were going out to work slaves to man's dollar, yes. All the times of time, they slay and play all day for that stay. And then, a calling has come. A new hope. A new beginning. He tilted his head. Do not like it. You do. When children stop bowing on schedule. Duke took one hard step forward. Shadow did not move, not 1 inch. And when he spoke next, the sarcasm dropped out of it just enough to let the threat underneath show through. You built a row of rows, all in a row, head to toe, and thought it was a kingdom. Pitter-patter, piter. We go, yes. And then one little stone moves, one little pair stays close, one little child says no. And suddenly, oh dear. He smiled again. Balance, not so balanced. Duke's voice went low. You think 1 year of disruption means anything? Shadow's answer came without pause. A calling has come? Duke sneered. That means nothing. Shadow's face stilled. No grin, no show, no joke. To you die, he said. The corridor tightened. Behind them, Quinn had not gone far enough. Peter too. Fex too. Even Vorden, despite explicit orders, had stopped just out of sightline because Rules and Vorden had always hated each other on principle. Duke felt the line behind Shadow without seeing it properly. That was the wound. Because last year, boys like these had not stayed. They had scattered. They had looked down. They had let Duke own the corridor before he arrived. Now the closeness had weight. Shadow let him feel it. And then, because the room had earned the blade under the riddle, spoke from the poem again. Passing by our way forward and back, yet still up and down, and in all directions depending on who you are in life. His cane tapped once. Depending, Duke, that is the troublesome part. Depending on who you are in life, the road changes. Your road used to be easier. He smiled. Mine too, perhaps. Boring that would have been. Duke's face darkened. Christopher stepped between them by one exact pace. That's your warning. Duke didn't look at him. What warning? Christopher answered anyway. The lower floor is no longer asleep. That one landed. Hope saw it. Cleo did too. Duke looked at Shadow one final time and asked the only honest question he'd said all night. What are you? Shadow's grin came back at once. Bright and dangerous and impossible to file properly. Who am I inside? He said almost dreamily. How would I express myself if nothing was limiting me? He gave a soft laugh through his nose. Maybe wind, maybe mountain, maybe star, maybe dragon. You see where I'm going with this. Duke's expression twisted. That's not an answer. Shadow's voice turned honey dark. No, it is a door. Duke stood there for one more second, trying to decide whether the door was nonsense or prophecy. Then he left. No final line, no clean wind. Just retreat dressed as discussed. When he was gone, the corridor breathed again. Vorden poked his head around the corner immediately. Well, that was horrible. Peter looked at Shadow like he'd just watched a library get into a knife fight, and went on grammar. What was that? Shadow turned his face toward him and for 1 second played absent-minded again.
It's gonna get worse.
What was what?
Or better.
Vorden threw both hands up. Oh, marvelous. He's forgotten being unbearable already. Fex looked down the empty corridor, where Duke had vanished. He was rattled. Quinn nodded once. Yeah. Christopher finally looked at Shadow. You enjoyed that too much. Shadow's mouth shifted. Perhaps. Hope crossed her arms. No? Definitely. Cleo checked the silver page. Duke unbalanced line. Held. Vorden stepped closer, unable to help himself. What did the dragon line mean? Shadow smiled faintly. Which one?
It's gonna get better.
The dragon,
if you
the
stay
star,
and watch.
the mountain,
Get more
the whole.
poetry.
Maybe I'm every weather event in one
I'm
school
all
uniform
poetry on
thing.
the page.
Shadow tilted his
This is
head.
the whole poem on
Means
the
what
page.
shape a soul takes. Depends on what truth it is finally allowed to carry. That shut Vorden up for almost
Some of
2
them
whole
are songs
seconds.
now, too.
Then. Right. Yes. Very good. Hate how much that worked. Peter laughed. Actually laughed. Quinn's mouth twitched. Fex shook his head once. Hope let the sound live. Cleo looked at the page and smiled in that secret silver way
Eminem
she had when a
battle
room
dance
came
of
back
poetry.
cleaner than it had been.
A rap
Christopher
battle.
broke the
Coming
corridor
up
before
later.
it turned
Wait
soft.
for it.
Class,
It's worth it, I promise.
Vorden
There's some going to
groaned.
break dancing.
Shadow looked delighted.
Special dance
See,
battle.
we go. Vorden
Dance
pointed
battle
at him.
against Lucifer.
If you say all in a
And
row
Duke.
one more time,
And all of his
I'm pushing you down
army
the
of
stairs.
bullies.
Shadow's grin widened. All in a row, head to toe. All in a row. Push you may. Catch me you won't. And because the line held, because the corridor was theirs again, because Duke had left with less than he came for, and the students were still close enough to feel it, they went, all in a row, head to toe, still here, locked. 1. Past choice. Hope and Cleo show Shadow one older corridor scene, where Duke's system worked perfectly, so he can understand exactly what has changed. 2. Present choice. Shadow keeps this Yoda Joker poet mode through the next full school day, and uses only poem riddles to answer every bully and authority test. 3. Future
Even the AI
choice.
gave the option.
Cleo warns
And I
that this
decided to do
persona
it on my
glitch
own.
may open one deeper hidden memory if Shadow keeps using it through 3 pressure scenes in a row. Blocked.
So I said, hell,
Chapter
why
The
not? Let's
Mask
go
of
for
the
it.
Still
Yeah.
Misread. The next class began like any other lie in the school began. With order, rows, marks on the floor, names called in the wrong tone by the wrong men, students pretending they were only students, teachers pretending they were only teachers. Leo stood in the center ring, with both hands behind his back. Quinn on the left, Fex near him. Peter and Vorden 2 lines over. Layla and Aaron with the girls at the outer arc. Christopher at the rail. Hope and Cleo in the observation line, like ordinary staff to anyone too dull to know better. And Shadow. Shadow walked in late enough to be noticed, and calm enough to make being noticed it feel deliberate. No one there had seen the real shape yet. Not the Bard current. Not the deeper Ruhan current. Not the Cyber Knight Jedi Shadow light line in full. Not the Palace of Masks underneath the blindfold, and the cane in the smart mouth. They still thought he was a strange elf boy, with too much timing, and not enough fear. Good. Let them. Leo did not turn when he said, "You're late." Shadow stopped 3 paces into the ring. Late? No. Fashionably delayed, by the geometry of destiny perhaps. His head tilted, voice bright and crooked, and too amused for the room. Besides, a class starts twice, doesn't it? Once when the bell rings, and once when I arrive. Funny little kingdom time. Vorden whispered, "Oh no." Peter glanced sideways. What? Vorden kept his eyes forward. He's in one of his moods. Shadow smiled toward the sound of that like a cat, hearing glass crack, exactly where it expected. A mood? No. Why bright and tremble in public? Merely a flavor. A dash. A note. He lifted the cane slightly. A gentleman's laugh. A king's patience. A trickster's mirror. Stirred, not shaken, or perhaps shaken and then laughed